Hello, my name is Caroline Crago, and I'm going to be discussing primary versus secondary word stress today. This topic is from the Week 7 topic list in CSD 232. First, a brief table of contents to go over what I will be discussing today. First off, I'll provide an introduction as well as provide a definition for word stress. Then I will transition into specifically talking about primary word stress, including a definition, examples, and relating it to transcription. Then, to complement that, I will be discussing secondary word stress, providing a definition, examples, and relating it to transcription as well. After that, I will discuss identification and how to identify primary versus secondary word stress. Following that, I will provide some examples, specifically of words with only primary word stress, as well as words with both primary and secondary word stress. To wrap up, I will provide some questions about primary and secondary word stress. First off, what is word stress? Word stress can be defined as the manner in which stresses are distributed on the syllables of a word, according to Merriam-Webster. Word stress can also be known as lexical stress or word accent. Word stress requires one of the following components, either an increased duration on a syllable or an increased loudness on a syllable. There also may be a change in pitch on a stressed syllable. The goal of word stress is to help increase intelligibility. This information comes from the allophones and transcription video in the CSD 232 D2L. Now let's focus in specifically on what is primary word stress. Primary word stress is defined as the syllable that gets the most stress in a word. For example, in the word record, the primary stress is on the first syllable. Now, relating that to transcription, when doing narrow transcription, specifically, primary word stress is denoted by an apostrophe before the syllable. Now, transitioning into secondary word stress. Secondary word stress is defined as any other syllables that get the stress in a word. For example, in the word present, the primary stress is on the first syllable, but there is still stress on the second syllable. Relating that to transcription, specifically narrow transcription, secondary word stress is denoted by a comma before the syllable. A moment for unstressed syllables. If a syllable in a word has no stress at all, it is referred to as an unstressed syllable. Let's transition now to discussing identification of primary and secondary word stressed syllables. First, we will start off with how to identify primary word stress. There are three key features to look out for. First, loudness, as the primarily stressed syllable tends to be the loudest syllable in a word. Secondarily, duration. The primarily stressed syllable tends to be the syllable with the longest pronunciation. And then finally, pitch. Oftentimes, but not always, the pitch of the primarily stressed syllable is greater than the other syllables surrounding it. The source for these references is the University of Manitoba. Let's transition now into how to identify secondary stress. According to the accent channel, secondary stress is loud and long with a change in pitch, but not as loud or as long as the syllables that get the primary stress. Relating this back to the primarily stressed slide that we previously looked at, the features of loudness, duration, and pitch, the ones that experience the largest differentiation in those would be the primarily stressed syllable. But if these features are also seen to a lesser degree on another syllable in a word, that syllable may be identified as one with secondary word stress. If a syllable in a word does not have these three identifiers of loudness, duration, and change in pitch, it may be an unstressed syllable that we had mentioned on a slide previously. Now let's transition into some examples. Specifically, let's begin with ones that have only a primary word stress. Let's begin. 1. Contract, primary stress on syllable tract. Parent, primary stress, rent. Object, primary stress on the word ject. In my specific pronunciation, you could really hear object. You could definitely hear the increase in loudness, duration, and pitch when I pronounce that second syllable, ject. Now here we have conduct and conduct, which is an example of how word stress helps to increase the intelligibility of a word. Due to the difference in word stress in these words, they can mean completely different things. If the primary word stress is on the first syllable, con, the word becomes conduct, which is a noun. If the primary word stress is placed on the secondary syllable duct, the word becomes conduct, which is a verb. Here are some examples of words with both types of word stress. Alternate, primary, all, secondary, net. Diphthong, primary, dip, secondary, thong. Realize, primary, secondary, lies. Rewind, primary, wind, secondary, re. Anecdote, primary, and secondary, dote. Explanation, primary, nage, secondary, x. Now, discuss some questions that are related to primary and secondary word stress. I have 3 questions here, attempting to cover a couple of the bases I've covered in my discussion today. 1, how do you identify primary versus secondary stress in a word? This is something relate to the 3 different qualifiers that I've mentioned previously. Number 2, what kind of word stress is in the word requirement? And number 3, what is an unstressed syllable? Here is a good online resource. This is the free dictionary. The specific link will take you to a list with lots of pages filled with different examples of word stress, ones that are found on the first syllable, second syllable, words with primary and secondary word stress, multiple syllables. It is a very helpful website if you're looking to look into some more examples. And then just the actual freedictionary.com website, which I have forgot to link here. It has a feature where you can look up any word in addition to it being a normal dictionary, it will provide the narrow transcription for the word that you looked up, which will provide the comma and the apostrophe that will denote the secondary and primary word stress. Alrighty, that is my presentation today. Thank you so much, and I hope you have a lovely rest of your day.